ask everyone to please be seated. We're about to begin the services of Mrs. Judith C. Immergluck. Just a few brief announcements before we begin the service. If you happen to have a cell phone with you today, please make sure it's in the silent mode or shut off completely. We'd appreciate that. The entombment will take place immediately following the chapel service today at Memorial Park Mausoleum in Skokie. If you're joining the procession, we will make sure that we will provide you with an orange funeral sticker as well as a magnetic flag for your car. The Shiva will be at Brian and Laura Immergluck's residence, 3504 Vantage Lane in Glenview, following the cemetery today until 8 p.m., and then again tomorrow, Thursday, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. All this information is listed in the folder you received today, and for those of you viewing online, it's also on our website. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers this morning. At the conclusion, at the very end of the service, Cantor Stephen Storr from Congregation Beth Shalom will ask you to come forward. They are Jacob Immergluck, Matthew Immergluck, Melody Immergluck, Jeff Hirsch, Neil Hirsch, and Marty Weinberger.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to join your voices together in reading the 23rd Psalm in English after you will hear the words in the Hebrew chanted. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, b'not Shayar b'tzeini, Almei menuchot yenahaleini, nafshi yeshovev, Yancheni v'maglei tzedek le'ma'an shemo, gam ki ele begeit samavet lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha Hema yenachamuni, ta'arov lefanai shulchan, neged sorerai, deshantav Hashem en roshi, kosi revaya, achtov v'chesed yirdefuni, Kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai, le'orech yamim.
The beautiful chanting of that song brings our attention to a couple of verses. Specifically, the one I'd like to focus on is the words that you read, Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The poet, King David, is an optimist. He realizes that we in our lives will be walking through the valleys of the shadow of death. We will be walking through sad moments. We will be walking through, if you will, depressions, valleys, emotional valleys in our life. Sometimes we feel it will overwhelm us, it will overtake us, it will hold us captive to our sadness. But he writes that we will walk through the valley. We will not get stuck there. How does one get through a moment such as this? How does somebody get through the moment of losing a spouse of 6 decades plus, a loving mother, sister, family member? It's through family. It's the way Judy got through her illnesses and her struggles, through the support and the love of family and of community and of faith. And she was a faithful spiritual person who sought out Jewish teaching and spiritual guidance. And I hope that those things will carry you through these difficult moments of the shadows in which we stand at the moment. Although, I don't know if you noticed, but when Laura was singing, there was a burst of sunshine that did come through those windows. And maybe that's the sign that we're all looking for. Come, children, come and listen, and you will know what it means to honor the Lord. Be eager for life, and how so Judy was. Be eager to live each and every day and desire good fortune for those around you. Guard your tongue from evil. Keep your lips from deceitful speech. Shun evil and do good during your days, and always seek peace with your neighbor. אשת חיל מי ימצא ורחוק מפניני מחרה בטח בלב בעלה ושאלה לא יחסר גמלתו טוב ולא רע כל ימי חייה כפה פרסה לעני וידה שלחה לאביון שקר החן והבל היופי, אישה יראת אדוני כי תתהלל, תנו לה מפרי ידיה, והללוה והשארים מעשיה. These are words not from the book of Psalms, but the words of the book of Proverbs. A precious find, a woman of valor, is the Eshet Chayil, a woman whose worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband put his confidence in her, and he lacked no good thing, for she was good to him the days of their lives. She opened her hand to the needy and extended her hand out to the poor. She was always clothed in strength as well as splendor. She looked cheerfully to the future of her family. She opened her mouth with wisdom. She oversaw the activities of her household, never eating the bread of idleness. Her children have come forward to bless her today. Her husband had only praise for her. Many women have done superbly, but for this family, Judy, you have certainly surpassed them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty can be vain, but a woman such as Judy proved to be, a woman who is God-revering and living in the paths of the tenets of our teachings, that is much to be praised. We shall extol the fruit of her hands, but wherever people gather, the memory of her deeds upon this earth will speak her praise. Gal Gadot, move over. There is a new Wonder Woman, another with remarkable strength, who is making the headlines today. Judy Immergluck has shown the strength of mystifying proportions. Her long years of battling various illnesses and surgeries stupefied medical science. For over 50 years, Judy the family professes without complaint, picked herself up by the bootstraps and met every day with the best that she could give to her family and her community. Her strength is a testimony to the human spirit. Even her death was, in some ways, supernatural, having come back from a straight-line heart monitor to live a few more hours within the family circle of love. Family prayed by her bedside together. Judy would ultimately take her final breath and then quietly slip into her next universe. It was explained to me that Judy possessed the spirit of an artist. When Michelangelo was on his deathbed, his students came to his bedside and they cried, "Oh, Michelangelo, how will Rome ever be without you?" To which it is reported Michelangelo faintly waved his hand towards the window, with its vision of his sculptures and his architecture filling the streets of Rome below, and he whispered to them, "Rome will never be without me." And so too you will never really be without Judy in your lives, as she will remain a significant presence in your hearts. Her sons, Laurie and Brian, will be speaking with us at this time. Laurie, I think you're first.
Many of you probably remember my mom or know my mom as being a sickly woman. I wanted to paint a different picture today of the mom from my childhood. When thinking back about my childhood and my mom, I think about how loving and supportive she was for anything and everything I would try to do. Being the youngest of three had its advantages. I let my brother make all the mistakes and I learned what not to do from him. Thanks, Bri. Although she wasn't able to make many of my games when I played baseball or football, she would always want a recap of those games and how they went and how I did. She made up with that with my kids and all of her grandkids by going to as many sporting events as she could. She was there when Jacob's team won the championship, and that's a great memory for my boys. I remember summers as a kid. I went away to summer camp and she would drive up for Parents' Weekend to see me. And if she couldn't, she would send the best care packages. She would come bearing her gifts of my favorite candy and snacks. She knew the way to my heart. After she came, I would open up the care package, and I was like Willy Wonka at camp after that. "Oh, here you go, Aaron. Here's some licorice. Here's some M&Ms. Mom dropped off the best treats." So it made everything so much better, and she knew the way to my heart, and I take after her with her love of candy and treats, and so does her grandson, Evan. My mom always encouraged us to follow our dreams. She was a big reason that I became a DJ. Who else would drive their son and his cousin, Mark, downtown to a pawn shop to buy turntables? Yes, turntables. And a mixer to start a DJ hobby that became a career. She would also, on a regular basis, take me to the record store, yes, the record store, all the time. She made sure to tell me how proud she was of the man I've become and my professional accomplishments. My mom was the neighborhood mom to many of the kids in our neighborhood. All of Brian and our friends could attest to this. She would drive us anywhere we wanted or allow me to host an event at our house. To this day, my junior high and high school friends remember coming to Lori's house for WrestleMania. We would host 15 teenage boys for the pay-per-view events. These were 15 rambunctious boys watching wrestling, so you can imagine the shenanigans that happened after that. My mom had a special bond with my wife, Amy, as well, and her love of animals. She would love to come and help us sit for them when we went on vacations. She called it her little getaway with my zoo. My mom was not dealt the best hand in life, but she made the most of it and provided the best she could for her kids and grandkids. Mom, you did a great job raising us, and you will be sorely missed. I love you.
For the last year, I've started and stopped writing this eulogy about 10 times. Mom's health started to decline dramatically last December. the amazing will to live, and the heart of a champion. Mom's heart stopped beating for 10 minutes on Monday. The ER doctor told me I've been practicing medicine for a long time, and I have never seen anything like this. She then passed 3 hours later. So many people to thank who visited Mom at Belmont Village, and I know it was not easy. Sister Sandy and niece Carrie, cousins Neil, Kay, Andy, Gail, and Jackie, Jamie and Donna Borman, Joyce and Gemma, friends Annette and Lois, our friends Elian and Debbie Bear, Gina, her nail lady for years. And I know there were many others who kept her in their thoughts. Monday, we arrived at the hospital and we saw that things were declining quickly. Laura called Cantor Store. He arrived at 4 o'clock and he read a prayer, I read a prayer, and then he started to sing some prayers, which Mom would love. We all could tell how calm Mom was during those 30 minutes. The cantor left at 4:30. Mom passed at 4:55. I've been told that hearing is the last sense to go, and I truly believe after Mom heard our voices gathered around her and Cantor's beautiful prayers, she was finally able to let go. My mom had a big love for music, which has been passed down to each of her kids and grandchildren. As a side note, I would like to mention both Laura's maternal grandfather and my maternal grandfather were named Marvin, and both loved and played the piano by ear. Mom loved the Bee Gees, Johnny Mathis, Barbra Streisand, Barry Manilow, and her favorite in her later years was Josh Groban. Mom was the original dog whisperer. Our first dog in the later 70s was a Lhasa Apso, the meanest dog anyone has ever seen. Only, and I mean only, Noonie liked my mother, growled and snapped at all of us. You couldn't take your shoes off in the house or your feet would be toast. My friend Larry would walk by our house on his way home from Burger King, and he tossed ketchup packets. I was hoping they were poison. A later dog we had, who was an absolute neurotic freak, Norman, the perfect name for this terrier or whatever the heck he was. He would tiptoe around the house, shaking, running in circles like the dog from There's Something About Mary. Judy and her barnyard dogs. But we did have some good ones. Princess, BC, Coco, Cuddles, Snuggles, and Emily, who is still with us. My mom was not the greatest of cooks. She boiled ribs, and to this day I love ribs, but they were tasteless. Well-done burgers, and I mean well-done burgers. No taste. But if you opened our freezer when we were younger, you would see those frozen Swanson TV dinners. My favorite, the fried chicken with the mashed potatoes, the gravy, the vegetables, and that little cherry crumble pie. Oh my. I didn't love the Salisbury steak one, but those were there too. Mrs. Paul's fish sticks. Fanny's spaghetti, now we're talking. The refrigerator was stocked with Mom's favorite diet chocolate fudge soda by Canfield's and Tab. Yuck, I mean yuck, but you gotta love her for trying. Sports. My mom loved baseball. One of my early memories, 1974, so my first Peanut League, we'll call it Little League game. We were the Jets, we played the Lions. No joke, down 21-0 after 4. I'm up with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 6th, down 3 at Joswack Park. I hit one over the right fielder's head for a grand slam. I'm rounding the bases and I look up and I see my mom bawling. My teammates are asking, why is your mom crying? I said, oh, those are happy tears. The reason she was crying is her dad just had a heart attack and she yelled out, hit one for Papa. My mom also had a love affair with the Cubs, thanks to my dad, and was able to celebrate with everyone in 2016. Those that knew my mom and dad knew of their ups and downs, but they always stayed connected and deep down had a mutual love for one another. Like the cantor said, Judy loved all her grandkids with all of her heart. Matthew, who was her first, was so special to her. They immediately formed an incredible bond. She was his teacher, playmate, and babysitter. Jacob and Judy shared a special love for animals. Judy would go over and babysit not only the 2 grandchildren, but all 50 animals that came with the Immergluck Zoo. Evan got into art at a young age, and Judy loved Evan's interest and love for art. She would go into a school and watch him and help him do art projects. Melody was an unbelievable granddaughter to my mom, especially in those last couple of years. Made it her mission to call her twice a week, visited her every opportunity she had when she came home from school. My mom was truly the best Grammy to all her grandchildren. I want to say, and I know I am also speaking for Lori and Amy, that when our kids were little, my mom and dad were amazing babysitters and gave us a lot of time off and breaks to catch up on sleep, have a date night. I can remember walking into my house and just seeing my mom holding the babies for hours on her lap, smiling with pride. My parents loved every minute of those priceless times with their grandchildren. Joyce, my wonderful mother-in-law, you and my mom had a very special relationship. You talked on the phone, went shopping, went to plays, Hadassah luncheons, and so many family dinners. You took a wonderful trip to New York together, touring around, and Mom just brought this up the other day. She always asked, how's Joyce, when I went to visit her at Belmont, and sometimes we even FaceTimed you. Thank you for being such a wonderful friend to her. Cindy, you also spent time with my mom and had wonderful many lunches together. She also loved her trip with you visiting Phoenix. She loved you both very much and knew how special her relationships were with her Machatanam. Lori, you were the baby of the family, and Mom adored you. When she could be at all of your games, you had talked about this earlier, she would be there, and when she couldn't, she would always want a play-by-play breakdown of everything she missed. As the cantor stated earlier, Mom was a huge supporter of your DJ career and loved to brag about your events and success. Amy, Mom loved you, and you and her were kindred spirits when it came to your love for animals. She loved all the special gifts you would give her. She was always so appreciative. Laura, I love you for how devoted you were to my mom. You went out of your way to always think of my mom and always get her special gifts. You loved going on drives and talking with my mom. Judy loved coming to all your shows and supporting you with all of your musical endeavors. During the last few months, Laura would visit my mom and feed her when necessary. She would lay with her and let her know that everything was going to be okay. Thank you for always being there for my mom, and especially in her time of need. It was a beautiful relationship from day one until the end. Mom loved spiritual books. The cantor talked about this a little earlier. Some of her favorites were On Death and Dying, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, Blessings for Life's Journey, the Book of Jewish Values. I'm going to read you some excerpts from these books that have spoken to my heart. If I have found favor in your eyes, act towards me with steadfast kindness. When you visit a sick person, think of what he or she needs most. This final excerpt I direct to my mom from When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Where do you get the strength to go on when you have used up all of your strength? Where do you turn for patience when you have run out of patience? When you have been more patient for years than anyone should be asked to be, and the end is nowhere in sight? I believe that God gives us strength and patience and hope, renewing our spiritual resources when they run dry. How else do sick people manage to find more strength and more good humor over the course of prolonged illness than any one person could possibly have unless God was constantly replenishing their souls? Lastly, I want to talk about my incredible sister Rhonda, a caregiver beyond caregivers, and her best friend Donna. Donna, thank you for loving my mom as much as you did. Opening up your home to my mom in her later years was more than anyone could ask for. She truly loved you as her second daughter. Rhonda, I have no words to express my gratitude for what you did for our mother. It was not an easy job, but you did it with grace and true devotion to Mom. What you did was more than any parent or brother could ask for. You went above and beyond as the main caregiver to Mom. I know I speak for myself and for Lori that we could never truly thank you enough. You were Mom's rock and protector. She loved you very much. Thank you all so much for coming today. I know she's smiling down and so appreciative that you're all here.
For those who did not know Judy quite as personally, let me offer just a brief retrospective of her early life, her upbringing, her accomplishments, beyond the loving words that we've already heard. Born a South Sider here in Chicago, Judy was blessed with parents Marvin and Estelle. She had an adoring connection, you told me, as a daddy's girl to her father. Her twin sisters, Sandy and Sharon, got attention as twins are apt to get as wonderful lookalikes as young children. So Marvin had to make sure that Judy felt a little bit special herself and gave her some of that additional time. Sadly, I'm told he passed away much too early in your lives. She was known as someone who loved everyone around her. She was dedicated as a niece, if I have the names correct, and I beg your pardon if I don't, Arlene, Gloria, and Sheldon, and was an adored cousin. She was a super aunt to her own niece and nephews, equally supportive and present to the best of her abilities at their milestone moments, no matter the geographic distance. Judy was defined to me as the hub of the family, always working to keep family connected to one another. It was tough at times as Judy and her family moved around quite a bit in her young life. I think we were told she went to 6 different grade schools in her early years. The joke amongst family was if Estelle went out to shop, she might come home to find out that Marvin had put the house up for sale. Judy loved her homes, enjoyed painting the walls and redecorating the rooms, revealing a burgeoning artistic eye at a young age, much like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. She would, as many of you know later in life, find her touch and become a wonderful painter after taking a series of classes as well. She fell in love with her own work, and Matthew, who went to one of her showings with her, said she rarely wanted to sell anything because she felt so personally connected to each of her creations. Connected, just like she was with you, her family. Husband, Alan, 61 years. Children, Rhonda, Brian and Laura, Lori and Amy, her other daughter, Donna, along with wonderful grandchildren, Matthew, Melody, Jacob, and Evan. The family described how elated she was and literally sprung out of her bed when she learned that she was going to become a Grammy for the first time. Her grandchildren would become her sun, moon, and stars. And though her passing has impacted all of you, it is her victory over illness and her perseverance that has raised you up. I'd like to now call upon her granddaughter, Melody, to share some of her own words with us.
As my dad said, my Grammy and I had a very special connection through music. She always told me how I have taken after her papa and how much she loves when I sing and play piano for her, and how much I reminded her of him. She and Poppy bought a piano at the Wheeling house so Matthew and I could play piano for them whenever we went over, and I will say that we used it every time. Another thing my dad mentioned is how Grammy never missed any of her grandkids' things. I can say that she was at all of my performances from being a toddler up until college, and if she couldn't come to one, I would show her a video, or she would come over and watch the live stream with the whole family together. And then she would call me and tell me how wonderful it was. I was looking back at old voicemails yesterday, and they were all of her calling and checking in on how I was doing and if I was feeling okay. She never wanted anyone to feel bad. A couple of the voicemails I had saved were of her supporting me through an audition. In my beginning of high school years, the auditions were hard, and I didn't get most of the parts until junior or senior year. She left me a voicemail. Saying how it didn't matter, that I didn't get the part. That I didn't get the part because I was still amazing and the best to her, and she loved me so much, and that I would get it next time. And sure enough, I got it next time. I will always remember calling her and telling her how I got into the a cappella group, and her reaction was always the best. For everything. She would get so excited when I would call, and she would tell me how happy she was for me and how much I deserved it. She was just the most caring and uplifting person that I would call her whenever I was sad, because I knew she would make me feel better. She always built up my confidence, because I knew I had her on my side and that she would support me no matter what. Over the summer, Matthew and I tried to go as much as possible, even if it was just for 20 minutes, because when we would walk in, we would always brighten her day. She told us it was the greatest gift when we would come and surprise her. I'd open up the door, and every time she'd say, "Who is it?" And I'd say, "Mel." And she would say, "Oh, hi, Mel." And then she would say, "Where's Matthew? How's Matthew?" Even when she wasn't at her best, I didn't care. I loved every minute I spent with her in whatever state she was in, because I knew how much she loved me and that my presence would make her feel better. Now moving on to college, when I went to visit Grammy, I always played for her my music that I was working on with my a cappella group. And I'm so grateful that I got to show her my solo that I will be singing this Friday. Some of my favorite memories we had. I would call her every Friday morning to talk about the Thursday night's Grey's Anatomy episode. I would call her and I would be like, "Well, did you watch it?" Or I'd start the call with, "Wasn't that insane?" And she knew right away what I was talking about. We saw lots of musicals together. We saw Hamilton, Mamma Mia, Lion King, and probably more that I can't think of off the top of my head. The last time I saw her, I told her I was going to see Leah Michele in Funny Girl over winter break, and she talked about how much she loved the show Glee and how she wished she was still watching it. And this morning, when I was looking for jewelry, I found a pin that I had of Glee. When she would have a hot flash, I would lay in bed with her and feed her strawberry lemon ices. She would devour it. And eventually I would stop because my hand would get tired, and she would look at me and look around. She'd be like, "Where'd it go?" And she'd always want more. She loved lemonade. She loved our pool and always talked about the summer and how she wanted to come and swim. She loved our dog Tigger. When we sat, back when she was still living at Rhonda's, we would sit and watch the new Beatles show on Disney Plus, and we would sing along to the songs together. We would snuggle on her bed when I was younger and still now. I would come over to the Wheeling house, and she would be sitting up in her bed, and I would run up and jump on it and lay and hug her. And last but not least, she loved Al's boat, and when we would all go together. I can still remember so vividly, she asked Al to play some Josh Groban, and she sat there in the back seat for the whole song with her eyes closed, meditating as he sang. And so now, I will sing a little of that song to honor Grammy and our memories. Please bear with me. Hold on. When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burden be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be. Thank you.
Rhonda, the other day you recalled parties that you and Donna would hold at your mother's bedside on days that she just didn't have the energy to get out of bed. Imagine there was chatting and laughter permeating the room with your love. And as we heard, Laurie said his mother was ever so encouraging and being a catalyst to his own career. She was omnipresent not only for her children, but as you've heard, for her grandchildren at their recitals, their baseball games, their choir performances, their shows, so many other moments. Some superheroes leave a trademark insignia, such as Zorro with his Z, or the Lone Ranger with the silver bullet. Judy left lipstick marks on your face when she would see you, a legendary hugger and kisser that I'm told about. As a wife to you, Alan, the long years say much. You admitted that not every day was a fairy tale, but your love that you shared was very deep. Sadly, the more elaborate and maybe fairy tale formal wedding that you had planned on early in your lives was curtailed because Judy's father had a heart attack just prior to the ceremony, but you said they made the best of it. You ended up having a short marriage ceremony in the chapel at St. Luke's Hospital in Racine, Wisconsin, and then again in the chambers, I believe, of Judge Abraham Lincoln Merovitz. And there he gave you marital advice, which was to honor and love and try to please your partner. You lived those marital vows of loving and honoring one another, and you said you worked your darndest to please one another as well. You met very young at a grammar school graduation many years ago. I think you dated it 1955. At the celebration party of that graduation, there was a dance which allowed the boys to circle around and meet different dance partners. You said once you came to face with Judy, you said you weren't moving anywhere else. She was sweet and lovable, you pined. You were but 15 and she was 13, but you said you knew. When you invited her to your prom in 1958, you coupled that invitation to the prom with a wedding proposal at the same time after having asked her parents for their permission. You certainly received their blessing. In 1961, you would marry. You offered the other day praise to Judy for being the backbone of your home, raising your children, often in your absence as you were driven to earn a good living and to provide for them all. You applauded her with words noting that, and she did a wonderful job of it. You reminisced about a wonderful trip, a train ride, I believe, to the city of New Orleans, and other moments that you could share together. You boasted, unlike your son, about her delicious sweet and sour meatballs and things that she could make, and the varieties of cheesecakes, cherry, blueberry, and the like. Judy did have a sweet tooth, as I believe we've heard. Chocolates, berry-flavored waters, milkshakes, to name a few items. However, Judy was additionally health conscious, exercised quite often, having a treadmill and a bicycle and some exercise machines in her home to stay in shape. From what I hear, though, she could have used her purse as a 40-pound kettlebell to work out with as well. Her yo-yoing of weight in her lifetime because of healthy periods and less healthy periods, you said often could confuse the scale. She not only cared for her body, but, as I mentioned, her spirit. She was engaged at Temple Bethel of Northbrook and enjoyed learning with Rabbis Weisberg and Helbron. She enjoyed the classes, enjoyed studying Kabbalah and spirituality. And she also took time to volunteer there when she could. And though she never did have the blessing to travel to Israel, she always had a strong affiliation with her heritage and with Jewish organizations such as Hadassah. She also had a professional career. Once she graduated Mosier Business College, she worked for her cousin Phil as a secretary. She then worked at Marshall Fields in the cosmetic department, North Shore Health Club in the pro shop, amongst other places. Laura said that Judy was always fashionable and ever so classy. Her nails always done expertly in her preferred purple color, as you heard by her friend Gina. Judy Immergluck was a special friend and loyal to the core. Annette, a longtime friend, has safeguarded a T-shirt which Judy gave to her years ago. The T-shirt, I'm sure, is sentimental. The friendship, though, priceless. Judy's touch in your lives is indelible. You will recall some of her mishigas, as we say, about superstitions, about umbrellas, tossing salt, putting your hat on the table, exclamations of kenahara and poo-poo-poo. They'll bring a smirk and a smile to your face. And maybe the next time you order in the restaurant, ask for a bayali, those little bagels that she enjoyed, and chuckle as you recalled her appetite for devouring an entire package of them in one sitting. Like Michelangelo's students and the city of Rome, you will never be without Judy Immergluck. You will recall her superpowers of strength and courage, her ability to make you happy, and her flair for adding splashes of color into your lives. When you miss her and need something to raise you up, remember to let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better. I'm going to add an additional memorial prayer. I'm going to ask you to stand if you're comfortable doing so. If you need to be seated, please do remain seated. After which we will invite the pallbearers forward. El maleh rachamim shachen bamromim אמצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת האישה היקרה יהודית שלחה לעולמה בגן עדן מנוחתה. אנא בא לרחמים אסתירך בשאת כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. As the pallbearers come forward, I'd like to read this prayer in the English. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Judith C. Immergluck, who has now come to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of life. May she rest in peace. May the next time this family have reason to gather only be a sweeter day in all of their lives. Amen.